put one out about, make that bigger, the Badger versus Wolverine debate. So Casual's going to talk about the infamous debate of Honey Badger versus Wolverine. I've seen at least one or two other videos that have tried to say who would win in a fight between a Honey Badger and a Wolverine. So I'm really curious what Casual's take would be on this. This one, odds and odds, I think this is going to be a happy one because, like I said, he's talking about Honey Badger versus Wolverine. I think this is going to be a good one. So I think we're going to get some kick-ass animal ferocity going on here. So let's do this.
An Oreo-flavored bowl cut wearing assault on the food web. A scavenging super soldier steroid weasel. Two animals infamous for durability blessed by the almighty, disregard of death as a concept, and being a part-time predatory hemorrhoid. An unstoppable force versus an immovable object. A fight as much philosophical as physical, and today we'll break down how these musclets match up until in the end, only one is.
Ooh, let's see. So I'm kind of blocking it, but it says Honey Badger, Strength 85, Agility 75, Rage Meter 101. And the Wolverine is Strength 92, Agility 70, Rage Meter 95.
Left standing. Now, disclaimer, I've actually done this video before, but after some additional research and some number crunching, my answers changed quite a bit, and after mulling it over, I actually feel pretty good about my pick. Another note I wanted to add is there are no definites in nature. What I mean is, if I say Animal A would beat Animal B in a fight, I don't mean Animal A would run the table every time. It's more like if A and B squared up 10 times, I'd expect Animal A to hypothetically win at least 6. Any debate worth having wouldn't just be one contender steamrolling the other. That being
okay. This game needs to be made. Casual, get with an indie developer, and you need to have this game made. I would love to fucking see this. A game called Casual Combat, where you have various different big animals, and they fight. I would fucking love to see this fucking game. Casual, I'm begging you, please make this happen. Make this happen.
Said, let's meet the misfits. The Honey Badger's black Air Force energy emanating from an aggressive tube sock. At only about 20 to 30 pounds and a length of 22 to 30 inches, the glorified ferret is too small, too slow, and too solitary for a conventional way of life. In a world of fight or flight, the Honeyhead's defining trait is not having wings, and monochrome crashouts are actually their best defense. But it's not just a bluff. The Bane of Bees has 1.5-inch claws, mostly for digging and breaking into hives, and jaws powerful enough to crack open a tortoise. They apparently use those jaws to castrate larger animals to bleed them to death. But if we want to be fair here, we do have to mention that the castration claim came from Kruger Park Ranger James Stevenson Hamilton in 1947 and hasn't been documented since. Either way, the real flex is that if cockroaches had breasts, they'd probably be honey badgers. They're that hard to kill. They famously have thick 6mm skin that can tank quills, bites, bees.
If an animal gets this many fucking quills stuck into him and looks pissed off, you do not fuck with it. He just looks annoyed and pissed off right now about this. This is when you go, yeah, I'm going to turn around and go in the exact opposite direction as fucking fast as I can. Yeah, he's living up to his name of Honey Badge don't give a fuck.
Stings, machetes, and most importantly, severe maulings from much larger predators. The rotel also has freakishly loose skin that makes it nearly impossible to pin down without it turning around and delivering punishment to the face. Additionally, they have a reversible anal pouch with a smell foul enough to gift angry bees the power of discernment, although I don't think it would affect a rampaging Wolverine. All in all, the Honey Badger punches way above its weight, and it needs to have a chance. The Wolverine is a travel-sized bear on bath salts and a different kind of cockroach, living on the very fringes of existence where most others could not. Wolverines weigh about 30 to 45 pounds and measure up at 28 to 42 inches, and they also have the Honey Badger problem of not having the bulk of a bear, the parkour prowess of a puma, or the power of friendship like wolves. They do have jaws strong enough to crush bone and chew through frozen flesh, and 4-inch semi-retractable claws, mostly for climbing, but also for running non-retractable fades. Like the Honey Badger, they have thick loose skin, but also a coat to insulate them from the elements. They're also the IRS for animals way above their weight class, as they're on record shifting cougars, wolves, and in some rare cases, even bears from meals. And again,
fucking hell! That Wolverine just said, yeah, I know you just killed it, but this bitch is mine now. Look at
A
this.
coat to insulate them from
Watch
the
this.
elements. They're also the IRS for animals way above their weight class, as they're on record shifting cougars, wolves.
This Wolverine just came in with, yeah, this bitch is mine now. Go fuck off. Oh, God. Dude. Oh, shit, wait, hang on. Oh, God, I almost forgot to do this. Hang on. Hang on. Before... Okay. And... Okay, before I forget, I turned back on all of the rewards. I forgot I turned them off for the gaming. They're back. They should be back on again proper. Oh, well, Anubis, I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember if there was a debate if they were going to actually give Logan's code name Wolverine or if they were actually thinking about Honey Badger, but I think in the end they decided because Honey Badgers don't really reside in Canada and because Logan is from Canada, I think that's why they went the name of Wolverine. I realize you're being cute, Anubis, but I do think they were actually considering the code name of Honey Badger. And I think in the end, what they end up doing is they went with Wolverine because Wolverines are in Canada. And what they ended up doing is one of the like female clones that they made of him, like one of the X series, like where Laura Kinney came from, because she's X-23, one of her sisters actually was codenamed Honey Badger. So they did, so I think they were if I'm remembering my history about the character correctly, I thought that when they were developing Wolverine, like, not like that this is like in canon, Kaibo, not like in canon they said, oh, we were originally going to call you Honey Badger. No, I'm just talking about like when they were developing the character, like in like the writer's room and they were working out all the details for him. I think originally they were considering calling him Honey Badger, but in the end, because he's in Canada, they went with Wolverine instead. And I'm guessing like with Laura Kinney, one of Laura Kinney's sisters, they actually like maybe ascribe the Honey Badger moniker to her, perhaps. No, it might not have been not well known, Kaibo, but I don't know. Maybe it was in response to people talking about how Logan's code name would have been better suited as a Honey Badger versus Wolverine because the Honey Badger is like more violent and can rage out faster, perhaps. Maybe it was in relation to that. So, Anubis, how dare you? Logan's original costume was fucking gangster, okay? I love this original costume, and he kept the color scheme for decades since.
And in some rare cases, even bears from meals. And again, like the Honey Badger, they also weaponize
That's
their
what I
anal
thought,
glands
Kaibo.
enough to have the nickname Skunk Bear. Not something that should matter against a badger, but the fight would be an odious assault on and of every sense. The Wolverine's bigger frame means it has confirmed kills against animals up to 20 times its size, and there's even one case of a Wolverine allegedly putting a polar bear in past tense by latching its jaws around the bear's windpipe. But just like with the Honey Badger,
Okay, hold the fuck up. Hold the fuck up. If a Wolverine was able to down a polar bear, that is some serious fucking bragging rights. Right fucking there. Serious goddamn bragging rights that he was able to take down a polar bear. I want to read.
The more you around, the more you're gonna find out.
And clearly, that polar bear fucked. Yes,
polar
hang
bear
on.
in
Let's see if I
past
can pull it
tense
up.
by latching its jaws.
Here we go. Wolverine kills polar bear in Arctic sea ice. The Wolverine, although regularly seen on the western Arctic coast of Alaska between Barrow and Point Hope in some numbers, hardly ever ventures out on sea ice. However high its inland concentrations rise in relation to food populations, but records of his tracks offshore are not occasionally by hunters in the area. Amos Lane, a native Amos Lane, a native Eskimo hunter who is one of the most experienced, widely ranged, and reliable of guides in Alaska, reports details of an encounter between a wolverine and a polar bear about 5 kilometers west of Lisburn Cliffs, north of Point Hope, in early spring of 1944, which was observed by his father. Tracks showed that the wolverine had been hunting or scavenging well offshore and was proceeding south when it met a polar bear. Evidently, the bear initiated the attack, but as it charged, the wolverine leapt and seized the bear's throat and clung so closely to its chest that the bear was unable to brush it off and only attempted to deliver a hug, which it quickly abandoned. The wolverine appears to have clung to the bear's windpipe without attempting any other kind of damage until the bear had choked to death. Mr. Lane dispatched the victor before any further behavior could be observed. Wow. So, the fact that a wolverine could take on a fucking polar bear, that is fucking gangster right fucking there. Well, this report is saying that this person actually observed. So this person, there is some second-handing here. There is indeed some second-handing. But this guide's father recounted a tale that she saw the wolverine take down the polar bear. Which, again, it's like, with something like that, I'm kind of inclined to believe it because what reason would there be to lie? There'd be no reason to lie about the wolverine killing the polar bear. So I'm kind of inclined to accept this because, as Casual said himself, just because a polar bear 9 times out of 10 could smoke a wolverine, it means that a wolverine can potentially take down a polar bear. So yeah, Kevin, it's like, yeah, it is the honey bear castrating thing that speaks more to a behavioral logical thing versus, okay, the wolverine potentially can take down a polar bear because it has happened before. So it's a bit different in that. It's a bit different when you're talking about behavioral science versus, okay, this animal once was able to take down a polar bear, which means it is possible that such a thing could occur again. Little bit different there.
Jaws around the bear's windpipe. But just like with the honey badger, there isn't really evidence of a rageaholic gym sock suffocating a polar bear with more than just smell, but then again, people won't let facts get in the way of a good story. That's how some animals end up sounding way worse than they actually are, and how other animals don't get taken nearly seriously enough. Like, the most dangerous animal in Yellowstone isn't a wolverine, a wolf, or even a bear, and a quick look at these articles and you'll see that a fluffy, bearded tank puts way more humans in hospital beds. But actually reading the articles will tell you that it's the people causing problems, and the bison are guilty of only protecting their personal space. That's why.
Why? Oh, fucking Instagrammers. Fucking Instagrammers. Like, this shot probably doesn't even have the fucking bison in the image. Look at the way she's holding her phone. You probably can't even see the fucking bison right there. Like, seriously. And I'm sorry, but wait, who is it? Grumpy? Yes, she does have a nice ass, but no amount of a nice ass is excusing this behavior. I'm sorry. You can have the finest ass on the planet. It does not excuse the behavior of fucking with an animal just to get an Instagram shot.
Why it's important you have both sides of a story before you start judging, and that's why I'm working with Ground News. Ground News is an app and website developed by a former NASA engineer who saw news outlets basically bias planting to boost engagement. And like I always say, if you think you're impervious to bias, then you're exactly who would be affected by it. But you can take the power back, because Ground News counters that by putting all the world's headlines from across the political spectrum in one place so you can actually be fully informed. Bison bias aside, here you can see the attack was covered by over 120 sources, with 72% being relatively.
By the way, can I just say, this is probably one of the smoothest ad transitions I've seen in almost any YouTube video that basically does like in video ads. This was the smoothest one of them all, I think. Bravo, casual. Well done.
Center, and 21 and 6% left and right leaning respectively, basically a blind spot for the right. But both sides seem to agree if a mobile boulder turns you into a flapjack,
the original
you
cowl
probably
was
had
a
it
bit
coming. What they don't agree on are what to make of the recent
Okay, sorry, casual. No, Anubis, I will agree. They didn't do good with his cowl, which is undoubtedly why they changed it to make the wings much more prominent and darker. But yeah, they definitely kept the body of the costume was great, and they absolutely kept that. So so on that I will agree. I mean, the original appearance of Wolverine happen in what? Mid-70s, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Like his first appearance in the Incredible Hulk was like around that time. I mean, we're used to seeing, was it early? I thought it might have been mid, but it could have been early. But yeah, we're used to seeing Logan, decades later in the his cowl changed after that first appearance. When he showed back up again when he was joining the X-Men, the cowl of his costume was completely different. And yes, Alex, when they were basically workshopping the character, yes, originally they were going to make the claws as a part of the gloves and not actually installed in him. But that was when they were workshopping the character, and then obviously they changed their mind. When they were workshopping the character, they were also trying to say that they were also planning on making it so that he was like actually part Wolverine, like he was literally a mutated Wolverine. That was also part of the workshopping. So they talked about a lot of stuff that got left on the cutting floor.
Protests, and with ground news, you can see that out of an overwhelming 750 plus sources, over 140 leaned left to the 100 plus rolling right. And with the comparison feature, you can see that the left criticized the escalation in Marine deployments and police involvement, while those leaning right are highlighting the volatility of the situation and the hopes that the deployments can quell it. With 85% of sources rated as highly factual,
the classic John Byrne outfit.
What you're reading is accurate. Also, with the blind spot feature, you can read up on stories one side may have completely missed to really paint the full picture. If you're as chronically online as I am, you need ground news at your disposal, and if you use my link, I got you 40% off the same $5 a month Vantage plan I'm using. Make sure you go to groundnews.com/casualgeo, click the link below, or scan the QR code on screen to subscribe to what the Nobel Peace Center called an excellent way to stay informed. But to see who would get unsubscribed from life first, it's imperative to see how they move in the world they live in. Because laying out all the tools they have to work with isn't as important as how they use them in the first place. Starting with the sand-seasoned rage-baiting ratel. Honey badgers have the second widest prey range of any mustelid, and most of what they find is by using their claws to dig them up. A study done in the Khalahadi Transfrontier Park found that most of what they eat are small mammals like mice and gerbils, and small reptiles like geckos and skinks. But honey badgers are also high metabolic maniacs that'll try highly venomous snakes such as puff adders and black mambas, and they'll steal larvae straight from the heart of homicidal beehives. They're so masochist coded that many believe that they're immune to venom when they're only resistant. There are cases of honey badgers being excused from the mortal roll call while eating honey because they got stung to death in the process, and getting flatlined by snakes because they kept getting bit but refused to quit. Honey badgers seem to have
I can't remember if it was in Casual's earlier video where he talked about the honey badger and the Wolverine. It might have been his earlier video where he said like they can get hit by the venomous snakes, and instead of like what would normally kill an animal or a person, the honey badger basically just like slept it off. Like that's how fucking tough they are. They're so resistant that very often venomous snakes, they like won't actually kill them. They just kind of like go to bed. They basically said, "Fuck, I've been, bit by a venomous snake. Oh, damn it, I'm going to bed." And they just go to sleep, and they fucking sleep it off. Yeah, like they've just had a night on the town and they partied a little too hard. They just had to sleep it off.
have a severe lack of self-preservation, but it makes sense when you live in a world where running away is physically not an option. But it also means they're crazy enough to try to meal tax a leopard right in front of it. And that's cause the honey badger is a forager on steroids that doesn't pass up opportunities to eat because they virtually can't afford to. Most predators rest and chill after a big kill, but honey badger will stop only for virtually can't afford to. Most predators rest and chill after a big kill, but honey badger will stop only for as long as it takes to consume it before running off to find another. This mentality also helps his furry fitted sheet not fold in the face of predators, and constantly fighting back even inches from death means even if it can be killed, it often ends up being more effort than it's worth. In a desolate landscape like the Kalahari, an overachieving weasel scrounges a living in the area code of some of the most impressive and oppressive forces of predatory nature. Wolverines are survivalists on steroids that live in some of the most unlivable places on Earth. While bears hibernate through the dead of winter, the skunk bear is still outside in avalanche country. Those claws work as crampons to let the Hulk weasel cling to the side of a cliff, and having large paws means they can run across the same deep snow other animals would sink in. Those jaws are specifically designed to tear through flesh that's frozen solid, and a wolverine
GBP, I'm thinking the honey badger. I'm thinking the honey badger is probably one of the most vicious and violent musclid out of all of them. So I do not think that the American badger would be able to stand up to the honey badger. It would just like rip it apart, I think.
Animals would sink in. Those jaws are specifically designed to tear through flesh that's frozen solid, and a wolvie will eat every part of a carcass, right down to the teeth. They even have a molar that's been rotated 90 degrees for the main purpose of cutting through ice solid meats. Also, they are the second most disrespectful creature to inclines, with number 1 going to goats. Wolverines will use mountains like we use crosswalks. It's actually why they're so impossible to keep track of. A motivated wolverine will easily trek through 40 miles of rough, virtually inaccessible terrain in a day, and in Glacier National, there was one case of a wolverine scaling a 5,000-foot peak in an hour and a half. And that stubbornness
Wait. Fucking what? This
case of a
thing
wolverine
went
scaling a 5,000-foot peak in an hour.
5,000-foot peak in an hour. A fucking hour. And it climbed a 5,000-foot peak.
Wolverines and honey badgers are homicidal maniacs.
Honey badger maybe. Wolverine, I don't know about that. I think they're just tough sons of bitches. That's like, do you say an hour and a half, like Bison?
Peak in an hour and a half. And that started
Hour and a half. Yeah, hour and a half. Sorry, my mistake. I misspoke. Hour and a half. But that's still fucking fast as hell. Holy shit!
Stubbornness applies to their diet, since wolverines often have to scavenge under the noses of apex predators. But wolverines can kill too, and in a study, 84% of the observed wolverines' diets included reindeer, and 28% of those were actually wiped out by wolverines. There might not be a worse predator to have than a wolverine, and it's because of how they hunt. Wolverines are the pioneers of one-person persistence hunting, and in one study, a wolverine chased a caribou for a total of just under 40 miles in a hunt exceeding 6 hours. The animal with glutton for a Latin name will tailgate a mark until they eventually gas out. So whether it's a determined garbage disposal or a flagrantly reckless felony ferret, beating either would be a war of attrition. But the question still remains, can he fight though? Both these animals rely on intimidation and offensive defense, but how do they fare when that bluff gets called? With honey badgers, those claws probably wouldn't feel good across the face, but the real damage is in that bite. A honey badger's jaws are strong enough to pull the meat out of a carcass after other predators are done with it. They're actually built for conflict, because the badger's skull has a transverse mandibular condyle that locks into the jaw socket, creating a tight fit that secures the jaw and makes it incredibly difficult to dislodge or dislocate. That's how a honey badger maintains its dental grip on either prey or predators, no matter how hard they buck. The jaw strength is how honey badgers are documented murking goats and sheep, usually by tearing holes in their underside and disemboweling them. The honey badger will also use its nasty bite to factory reset snakes by immobilizing them with a bite to the back of the head. By essentially shanking ops with their teeth and using claws for leverage, the honey badger has scored some impressive wins against raptors like Marshall and tawny eagles, and even the African porcupine, the same one that's a lion's last resort. When honey badgers fight each other, injuries show that they go for the face, neck, and underbelly because they know that everything else is a waste of time. The honey badger is an absolute stonewall, but its size means it's realistically not killing prey bigger than a sheep, not like the
And I must say, this honey badger got some balls. This ain't just a colloquialism, chat. We now know. Honey badger got some balls.
The Wolverine. The Wolverine is a walking vice grip capable of crippling prey. They have the same tight seal jaw mechanism that all mustelids do, and they use it by climbing on top of prey and eviscerating the neck and shoulder area. One of their favorite strats is running up on prey trapped in deep snow and essentially turning their last moments into a rodeo. Wolverines have used this to single-handedly take down Dahl's sheep, reindeer, mountain goats, elk, and even the biggest mark in the area. From 1967 to 2001 in Krasnoyarsk, Russia, there were 19 cases of Wolverines flatlining moose, and based on the bodies, they favor tearing at the legs, neck, and shoulder. Now, to be fair,
Okay, if anyone has ever encountered a moose before, you know this is no easy feat. Alright? When moose are fucking big, they are muscled as fucking hell. Like, they could get hit by a car and not die. Okay, the biggest danger when hitting a moose is you are more at risk of basically seeing the pearly gates when you hit a moose versus a moose seeing it. Are you talking about the Wolverines? Yes, we talked about that earlier. Oh yeah, they like moose do not fuck around. That's why if you see a moose, leave it the fuck alone. Do not fuck with it, especially a full-grown bull moose. The bull moose? Oh, those are, they are exceedingly dangerous, particularly in a rut, when they're in a rut. And let's not fuck with it, too. Their antlers, like, you probably have seen pictures of moose with, like, furry antlers. Yeah, that fur goes away, and those things turn into deadly fucking spikes. Okay? So, yeah, the fact that a Wolverine was able to take down a moose, that is no joke. And at Apex, yes, I have had moose. It's not bad. It's a bit gamey, but moose meat isn't bad. It's not bad. I definitely would prefer cow or maybe venison. But moose meat's not bad. It's there's regular hunting seasons in Newfoundland for it, and there are plenty of butchers that will butcher moose meat for a hunter. So it's definitely not bad. Yeah, elk is probably better. I've not had bison meat, Laura. No, I have not. I've had moose meat because moose are so fucking prevalent. Are so prevalent in Newfoundland, and plenty of people hunt them and sell the meat after they've hunted them. So. They're okay.
Neck, and shoulder. Now, to be fair, the Wolverines usually went after the young, the sick, or as mentioned, those swallowed by snowdrifts, but it's still a feral ferret the size of a mid-dog, taking the life of an animal 20 times its size. Against each other, they use their hook claws to grapple and try to land their trapped jaws around the face and throat. The Wolverine has a higher power rating than a honey badger, but the honey badger has that dog in him. Even in a dying effort, honey badgers have been known to throw hands at a lion for hours. But there's another aspect we gotta look at, and this might actually be what decides it. How they match up with predators is a big factor, since in this fight they're going up against another predator. And there's no shortage of threats to a honey badger's well-being. Lions, hyenas, leopards, wild dogs, crocodiles, baboons, and pythons are all liable to catch an African aggro skunk slipping. As much as their reputation precedes them, honey badger got quite a lot to give a shit about. Even though they can live for nearly 30 years in captivity, in the wild most won't make it past 7. Honey badgers aren't the indestructible black and white badger berserkers the internet says they are. They're actually very vulnerable to predators. And it seems that the honey badger's two biggest threats are leopards and hyenas. As funny as it is, mature lions typically avoid them, since beefing with them.
That kind of makes sense, because if I'm remembering my morphology, leopards and hyenas have some of the best bite strength out of most of the predators that they are with. Talking about lions, but leopards, I think, actually have a better bite strength than a lion does. Leopards have some of the most vicious bite strength of the big cats. They can, I think Casual did a video on it. They can, what was the example I gave? I think they went after a gator, or they went after a crocodile and like actually like crushed the crocodile's skull in its jaws or something like that. And hyenas, I know he's talked about it before. I can't remember the example he gave, but yeah, this is some serious fucking bite strength that even a honey badger's not going to be able to. Oh, was it a jaguar? It was a jaguar. Okay, so I'm mixing up my spotted bay cats.
And hyenas. As funny as it is, mature lions typically avoid them, since beefing with a malice-operated weasel when you hunt buffalo for a living is a genuine waste of time. But leopards and hyenas are more curious, and since a foot-tall badger can't outrun a hyena gang or sidestep a leopard, they literally have no other option than to fight to buy itself extra time on Earth. But ultimately, honey badgers have no shot at crippling any predator bigger than a jackal, and it becomes a losing matchup when a predator decides it does have time. It's just that the honey badger's crackhead determination means it can survive situations they have no business walking away from. Wolverines don't face the sheer volume.
Did that hold up? Did that just? I think it got it. I'm reasonably sure that, I think that honey badger is not more. I think that was a got him. I think he got
Wolverines
stabbed.
don't face the sheer volume, but they still have a familiar feline build, one of the greatest pack hunters of all time, and one of the largest land predators on Earth to deal with. Like the honey badger, the Wolverine's durability has been blown up as time's gone on. They're actually really vulnerable against wolves. They'll square up and fight the good fight, but they're as brave as they need to be until there's a tree. In a study on the mortality of wolverines in Sweden, over 40% died to a predator, likely a wolf, or another reen. Of course, we're still talking about a freaking Wolverine, and you gotta take a gigaferret capable of offing elk, lynxes, and on the right day, a moose. Seriously, Wolverines are a legitimate risk to predators that can't afford to tank injuries, and this can lead to them getting bullied out of resources that may not have been worth it. Wolverines are one of the rarest mammals in America, and because they typically live in the inhospitable, we don't really know how these encounters typically go, but we know one thing for sure: wolves, cougars, black bears, and brown bears can and have killed Wolverines. And no Wolverine has been recorded murking one of them, unless you believe the polar bear story. So now we have everything to decide who would win, but now we have to decide what winning is. Obviously, there's no question who wins in a fight to the death, but is it still a W if you can force a forfeit first? In nature, a fight to the death is rare, because the injury sustained would likely life deprive both sides anyway. As much as the drama of a drawn out cinematic duel to the death would sell, getting one side to turn tail is just as valuable a win. So here, a win would mean either straight up destroying the other, or successfully intimidating them. Now let's finally set the scene for the fight. It's the middle of an unbearably long dry season when a Wolverine and a honey badger run into each other at a fresh deer kill. Neither's eaten in days, and both may not eat for several more, and with these being two prime males, this fade might be fatal. Let's review what we got. The honey badger is arguably more durable, surviving maulings that would likely kill the Wolverine. Plus, a honey badger is liable to fight to the absolute death. But even in a fight going the distance, the biggest question remains: how does the honey badger basically beat a bigger version of itself? The Wolverine can survive one of the worst conditions of any predator, and the same jaws that can cripple a moose and allegedly a polar bear should be enough to crush the honey badger's skull. But the honey badger takes a lot to kill, and will be squirming and giving it right back the whole time. For the Wolverine, the question is, if bigger predators struggle with it, how does the Wolverine expect to be any different? It's not easy, but the winner is the Wolverine. The honey badger's lipo-looking loose skin and attitude would make this a prolonged fight, but the Wolverine's jaws are capable of inflicting enough crush damage on the badger, especially if it lands a blow to the head, which they normally go for. In a fight going the distance, the Wolverine would get beaten up, but the honey badger likely wouldn't be able to get a kill on the Wolverine. But the real winner here is the Wolverine's lack of risk aversion. Even though the honey badger is more kamikaze coded, Wolverines have been known to die trying to steal a kill in front of a bear. So the chances the Wolverine backs off are lower than the Wolverine offing the badger, or even the honey badger running first. Against a similar sized African civet, the nasty honey badger is able to pin it, but ultimately the civet's able to walk away. I can't see a honey badger submitting a much bigger Wolverine, but like I said, there are no definites in nature, and in a best of 10, I'd expect a Wolverine to force a submit or a retreat at least 6 times. It was close, but in a matchup like this, only one can take the W, so it's only fitting that the Wolverine already has it. But that's gonna do it for this video. Drink water, hug your mother, touch grass, call your father. Let me know what other matchups you want to hear me talk about, and I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.
Early tackle. I had no idea what it was.
Okay. Uh, okay. I was actually not expecting that. I was not expecting that conclusion. I thought for sure that he was going to say the honey badger would win. I legitimately fully was expecting him to say honey badger on that because of the honey badger's, tenacity and I was hoping for the Wolverine. I mean, granted, I'm a little biased because, I love Wolverines. So I was trying to keep that bias in check. I legitimately kind of was expecting to hear him say that, that the Wolverine would fight like hell, but in the end that the honey badger might actually win. I'm pleasantly surprised. So the Wolverine truly is the best at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice.